There are humiliations that slam shut like a door that will never be opened again. No shouting, no slaps, no theatrical drama. Just a sentence spoken almost calmly, almost coldly, and everything changes. That evening, Maria had been in the kitchen for hours. She was preparing dinner with that almost invisible care that some women put into every detail, never expecting any applause. The chicken was browning gently, fresh herbs scented the air, the sauces were simmering, and the living room table was already set, waiting for the guests. She wanted everything to be perfect because Anton, her husband, was hosting important colleagues. She wore a floral apron, her hair hastily tied back, and she was humming an old tune from her youth, as if to keep herself company. It was an ordinary evening on the surface. The kind of evening one forgets. Except this one was about to change her life. Anton appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie with that nervous exhaustion, the kind men have when they want to seem bigger than they really feel. He looked at her for a few seconds, then said in a curt tone, "Maria, I need to talk to you." She turned around with a simple, sincere smile, the smile of a woman who still believes she is at home, in her place, in her relationship. But that smile wasn't going to last. He started by reproaching her for her little pet name, then her way of speaking, her accent, that detail he once found charming and now considered embarrassing. She thought it was a bad joke. Then he dropped the real line, the one that takes your breath away, the one that leaves an emptiness in your chest, and told her that tonight it would be better if she didn't sit at the table with the guests. He told her that his colleagues were people of a certain standing, that they would talk about business, projects, the future, and that she was too simple for that kind of evening. Too simple. 2 words. 2 words capable of crushing years of love, of sacrifice, of loyalty, of support, of patience. Maria was frozen in place. Her hand stopped above the cutting board. For a second, she thought she had misheard. Too simple. Her, the woman who had supported him when he was still a nobody. Her, who prepared his meals while he was building his career. Her, who ran to her mother-in-law's every summer to help organize everything. Her, who had been there before the nice suits, before the business cards, before the professional dinners, before the illusion of prestige. Too simple. It wasn't just an insult. It was a betrayal. A raw, icy, unvarnished betrayal. She tried to understand. She recalled the other wives she knew, the wives of Anton's colleagues who were neither analysts, nor executives, nor strategy experts. They talked about flowers, cooking, travel, their children. No one had ever found that inappropriate. But that evening, Anton wasn't even trying to hide the truth anymore. It wasn't the conversation that bothered him. It was her background, her simplicity, her naturalness. Everything he had loved about her when he was still a shy, awkward, almost invisible young man, everything he found adorable when it reassured him, was now everything he despised, now that it threatened the image he wanted to project of himself. Then Maria understood something terrible. Some men don't really want to be loved for who they are. They want to be helped to climb up, and then, once they're at the top, they're ashamed of the hand that lifted them. Anton was one of those men. He had changed. Or maybe not. Maybe he had simply become confident enough to finally show his true face. She took off her apron without a word. She set it down on the table. She left the kitchen and locked herself in the bedroom. There, finally alone, she let the tears come. Not tears of weakness, tears of clarity. The kind that are born when you suddenly realize that the person you gave your heart to is no longer who you thought they were, or worse, that they never were. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she looked at the mirror in front of her. In it, she saw a tired, wounded woman, but still standing. A woman who had left her small village in the Urals with simple and honest dreams. A woman who had learned to cook, to sew, to work, to take care of others. A woman who had never been ashamed of her roots. Why should she start today? Simply because her husband, drunk on his own success, had decided to rewrite their story in his own way. The memories came flooding back. Her childhood in that quiet little place, among modest houses, family gardens, long winters, and summers that smelled of grass. Cut. There, people had little, maybe not much money, but they knew the value of things. They knew what loyalty, effort, and dignity meant. At 18, she left for the big city with a worn-out suitcase and the dream of becoming a teacher. She knew nothing about the world, the glitter of big companies, the well-orchestrated receptions, the sophisticated conversations. But she knew how to listen, to help, to understand, to love. And it was precisely in this way that she met Anton. At the time, Anton didn't impress anyone. He was nothing like the confident executive he now tried to imitate. He was thin, nervous, awkward, often mocked by others. People found him too reserved, too serious, too withdrawn. Some called him the bookworm. Maria, however, hadn't laughed. On the contrary, she had looked at him gently. She had seen his discomfort, his efforts, his loneliness. She was the first to speak to him without irony, the first to believe in him without any ulterior motive. Their story began, as sincere stories do, in simplicity, fragility, and kindness. At their first date, he was almost trembling as he held his cup of coffee. She found him endearing. He talked to her about his ambitions, his fears, about not being good enough, about his desire to succeed. And she encouraged him. She helped him study, reassured him before exams, mended his shirt for him. She made him something to eat, kept telling him he was capable. When he got his first job at a big company, he hugged her so tightly that it brought tears to her eyes. He told her, "Without you, I never would have made it." She believed him with all her strength. And now, today, this man was telling her that she didn't fit in his new world, as if she had become an embarrassing detail, as if love had a social class, as if success gave someone the right to look down on others. Maria stood up. She opened the wardrobe and took out her old suitcase, the one she had arrived in the city with years earlier. And she began to do what many people put off their entire lives. She chose to leave. Not tomorrow. Not after one last conversation. Pointless. Not after the belated apologies of a man caught red-handed in his arrogance. No. Tonight. Right now. Every piece of clothing she folded seemed to close a wound. Her favorite sweater, sent by her mother. A few dresses. A box of photos. The silent ordeal of a life she now refused to let be trampled. She still loved Anton, of course. That's what made everything more painful. You don't leave someone you've loved without pain, honestly. But she finally understood that love without respect is nothing but a decorated prison. She no longer wanted to be that woman, practical, discreet, useful, kept around as long as she made life easier, then hidden away when she threatened the image. She wanted to become someone in her own eyes again. So she called Lena, her childhood friend. Her voice was trembling, but her words were clear. She told of the humiliation, the words, the look, the shame cast upon her as if it were her fault. Lena didn't hesitate for a second. She told her to come right away. That there would be room, that she wasn't simple, that she was real. And that a man blind enough not to see it didn't deserve her tears or her presence. Those words acted like a balm. Maria was not alone. And it's often at that very moment that a woman finds her strength again. When someone reminds her of her worth, at the very moment she starts to doubt it. But the anger, on the other hand, hadn't subsided. Because this humiliation wasn't just about a dinner. It was about everything she had given, everything that had been taken for granted. So, in a surge of pain mixed with dignity, Maria picked up her phone and posted a few lines on social media. Not a scandal, not an act of revenge. Just the truth, bare, impossible to disguise. She wrote that her husband had just told her she shouldn't sit at the table with his guests because, according to him, she was too plain. She wrote that she had supported this man while he built his career, that she had cooked for his friends, helped his family, carried their daily life on her shoulders. And that today, she was leaving. Because you can be gentle without being submissive. Because you can love without accepting humiliation. She posted it. Then she put down the phone. The notifications started almost immediately. First friends, then women she knew, and even some wives of Anton's colleagues. Some were shocked, others hurt. Because they too came from modest families, from small towns, from simple backgrounds she had never denied. Without meaning to, Anton had not only humiliated her. He had humiliated everyone who had grown up far from pretentious circles, everyone who had fought to move forward without ever learning to despise their origins. His snobbery had just been exposed for all to see, and it wasn't Maria who had destroyed his reputation, it was him. By his own words,